If one day there is a war or natural disaster suddenly, without electricity and food, how do you protect yourself and your family? Don't you want to have a self-sufficient survival shelter? It is always a good thing to plan ahead. Today we introduce 7 steps to build your own survival shelter, own your own shelter, and protect your family in the face of disaster. Chapter 1 – 4 Easy Ways to Generate Your Own Electricity at Home. Remember the story I told you earlier about my failed generator and how my dad's old, dusty one saved the day? Now you can build my father's improvised generator yourself. In just one afternoon, build your own generator from used car parts. In the first chapter of this book, we'll teach you an easy method to build your own generator from used car parts. But since relying on only one source to fulfill your needs isn't part of our anti-fragile philosophy, there are also 3 other projects to satisfy your energy needs, which, when coupled with battery storage, will make you truly energy independent. Including windmill. A windmill able to generate 100 watts day or night. If there's wind, this windmill can generate power day and night. It's a set up and forget method of collecting energy, which can be stored straight away into batteries. Water mill near running water. Then you can build a power source to supply you with constant energy. Our water mill is perfect and highly modular, so you can even modify it to take on other tasks like powering a grain mill, lumber mill, power hammer and more. Home solar power system. Finally, this book contains a full project on how to set up your own home solar power system. After you get the material from a hardware store, you can get started without the help of an expensive electrician. What's so fantastic about using renewable energy from wind, water, and the sun is that it's infinite. Therefore, I recommend building several of these power generators to give you unlimited energy. Chapter 2 – Growing Your Own Food. In small spaces. Have you heard of the food crisis in Venezuela following its collapse due to the socialist regime? As a result of the crisis, people started to grow their own food, right in the middle of the city. They do that on patches of land, balconies and even on the rooftops of apartment buildings. It's amazing how you can grow food almost anywhere. And that's what this chapter will teach you. We've got 4 popular gardening projects for you that are prepper favorites. The Underground Walapini Greenhouse. The Underground Walapini Greenhouse. It's based on the Benson Institute's design, and through this book, you can recreate it the way my father built it. Lex's easy-to-read designs complete the chapter and can't be found anywhere else. In this book, you'll find a diagram which will provide the minimum year-round needs of an entire family. The biggest advantage of this type of greenhouse is you can grow summer vegetables, like tomatoes, bananas, and nutritious avocados, even in winter. This is because its design harnesses and stores the heat from the sun, while not being as fragile as a typical glass greenhouse. 3. This makes this type of greenhouse ideal for generating barterable goods when good old cash has lost its value. Plus, this design follows our trademark anti-fragile philosophy, so you can make yours from the readily available materials which are all listed in Survival Sanctuary. A wicking bed. A wicking bed. This raised bed garden is watered from below, by placing it on top of a water reservoir. Compared to a conventional raised bed, this wicking bed only needs to be watered once every 2 to 3 weeks. Their efficiency also means they use up to 50% less water than with conventional gardening, which makes it perfect for dry climates or when water is scarce. Vertical garden. Get started with the easiest form of gardening out there. The vertical garden. Not only is this type of garden ideal for small spaces like apartment balconies, but its height-based nature also means you don't have to bend over all the time when you're planting and harvesting. Vertical gardening is ideal for smaller plants, like medicinal plants or herbs. Plus, because of its height, it's also very resistant to the usual pests that plague other gardens. Square Foot Garden. Our final gardening project is the Square Foot Garden. As the name implies, it's a type of garden where the soil is divided up into areas of a square foot. This ensures you use less fertilizer and have a garden that's easier to manage due to its concentrated nature. 6. It's perfect for bigger crops, like cabbage and potatoes, and you can combine it with the Wallapini greenhouse to grow easy-to-manage summer crops in winter. Chapter 3 – How to preserve and store your food. Growing food is just part of the equation, the other is storing it. Devices such as dehydrators, freezer dryers and, more commonly, traditional fridges and freezers, are all good ways to make perishable food last longer. But as we have learned during this presentation, all of these can eventually fail. Luckily, my dad made SCARR alternatives. Meaning they are simple, cheap, adaptable, resilient, and reliable. And what's even better is none of these three methods require any electricity to run. This makes them very easy and safe to make. Introducing Low-cost solar dehydrator. Replace your electric dehydrator with a DIY low-cost solar dehydrator. Use the free power of the sun to quickly and efficiently dry your foods so they'll last for years. Perfect to preserve all those fruits, veggies, and herbs you've grown through your greenhouse and anti-fragile gardening systems. Did you know freeze-drying is the best way to keep your stored food high-grade for long periods of time, with almost no loss in nutritive value and flavor? Unfortunately, store-bought freeze dryers are expensive and suffer from the same fragility as many other commercial products. Luckily, you can now build your own freeze dryer with just some basic tools. With this device, you can easily create rations to store in your bug-out bag or bug-out vehicle. Put the freeze-dried food in some water and it'll look just like it did years ago before you put it in your homemade dryer. Root cellar. The root cellar is one of the oldest known methods of storing food and is still a very effective one, which is why it's so popular with homesteaders, preppers and enthusiasts of traditional culture. Best used for storing vegetables, fruits, nuts, and other foods, but our design comes with a twist as it also doubles as an underground bunker for you and your family. Chapter 4 – A simple and cheap alternative to air conditioning. Alternative air conditioning. Working on your projects and gardening. It often involves some physical labor. That's why it's important to keep the area you work and live in cool. Now you can do this with traditional air conditioning, but these are very maintenance heavy and prone to breaking. That's why Dad made his own cooling units based on an ancient principle of using terracotta and water. In this chapter, I'll tell you exactly how to make your own cheap air coolers. They're so cheap to make and efficient to run, plus you can put one in every room for maximum cooling. Chapter 5 – Collecting and storing water off-grid. Just like with our electrical grid and grocery food, we are dependent on our water supply network. But again, this system is incredibly fragile. Water is not just necessary for drinking, but also for hygiene like washing food, clothes and even ourselves. In 2018, the South African city of Cape Town faced a major crisis. After 3 years of droughts, the city's water supply was threatening to run dry. 7. As a result, the city was prepping for Day Zero, the day the water taps would be turned off. Luckily for them, the day never came, as 90 days before Day Zero, rains ended the drought. But we don't even have to look far away from home. Remember the 2015 drought in California? Or the crisis in Flint, Michigan, where the city folk couldn't use tap water for years. 28. All this teaches us the importance of collecting and storing your own water. And this chapter teaches you how with 5 simple projects. One of the easiest methods to get free water to your home is by tapping into groundwater with a simple water well. Simple water well. However, asking an expert to dig your well is expensive, plus, if the well fails, it's best you know how to make it operational again on your own or how to dig a new one at a different location. That's why we included an easy method for a DIY water well so you can give your home, bug-out location or off-grid homestead quick access to water. Rainwater collection system. Next up we have our modular rainwater collection system. This simple design collects rainwater efficiently and locks it into self-sealing tanks. As a result, you can easily take a tank out of the system and move it to wherever the water is needed, for example a toilet tank or as a fire-fighting precaution. To make all that collected ground and rainwater ready for consumption, you need to remove harmful products. Biosand filter. That's where our biosand filter comes into play. It removes heavy metals, bacteria, viruses and more from water, which makes it safe to use for cooking, washing, and drinking, after treatment. Point 9. Cistern. Collect rainwater fast with this cheap and easy to build cistern. The cistern itself is made from a culvert, a common piece of equipment you can easily source in an emergency. Cisterns are extremely valuable to collect rainwater passively and in large volumes. It's also recommended to keep at least one cistern exclusively for emergencies like fire fighting, since that water can make the difference between life and death. Pipe system plus, no more need for a plumber, because you'll make your own pipe system and hydraulic ram pump with our very simple design. After implementing this system, you'll be able to pump all that collected water around your home, straight into a toilet, sink, and garden. Hydraulic ram pump. Chapter 6. Build your own radio in a crisis. Information is key. Knowing where to collect drinking water, which rescue operations are being conducted or weather info is vital in a survival situation. This info is often broadcast over the radio waves, so it's always handy to keep a radio stocked for such an event. But again, what if it breaks or you can't power it anymore? Here's a solution from World War II. It's called a POW or foxhole radio, and you don't even need any power to operate it, making it ideal for crisis situations. As the name implies, prisoners of war in WW2 built these radios out of easily sourced materials so they could listen in on local radio stations. Soldiers in the field built them too for the exact same reason, and to get some entertainment. It's a fun and easy project that yields immediate results. It's one of the projects from this book I can't wait to do again with my future grandkids. Chapter 7. Make your own weapons and traps in a time of crisis. Simple resources like food, water, and energy become precious commodities. Some people, however, will take a different route than you and invest their time and energy in taking those resources from others. You'll need to protect what you've built from previous chapters. Now, unfortunately, you won't find a recipe to make your own gun in this chapter, but there are a few interesting recipes for when you can't get your hands on one or when ammo is in limited supply. Or for after the government has come knocking on your door to seize your guns. In our final chapter, you'll find some useful and, to be honest, fun projects, some of which take less than 30 minutes to make. I'll have you know I used the tripwire hack all around the cabin in case those firewood thieves ever came back. Also, note some of these projects are also useful for hunting. Here's a glimpse at them. Homemade crossbow. My dad's homemade crossbow, great for when you run out of ammo and need to keep assailants at a distance, or use it to hunt in silence and replenish your food supplies. I'm also teaching my kids to hunt with it, which is a great way to introduce traditional hunting methods to the young. Tripwire trap. A tripwire trap, that way, when an intruder enters your perimeter and trips this trap, you'll be waiting for him with do-it-yourself flamethrower. A do-it-yourself flamethrower also used it to kill unwanted weeds and wasps' nests. And 5 more designs that will make your off-grid location inaccessible for intruders.